Hello and welcome to the Quiet Life Podcast again. I'm Pat Yates. Today we have a great conversation. I'm so excited we're going to talk with Robb Green, and this is more a personal and focused type of entrepreneurial conversation, not necessarily focused on any one business. I was really taken by the early conversation with Robb about his focus on family. I think we found and struck up a relationship here that is kind of going to endure because we both have family-driven focus on our business. How, as an entrepreneur, we both come in and we focus on business, making sure that it's done right, but also in a way that we have the ability to focus on family. He's a coach. He's a wealth builder. He's done entrepreneurship. He talks about building relationships. And the interesting thing, I say on here, he did 17 brands. People gave me some bad information. He's actually done 8. But still, it's amazing to be able to build that many brands, back active in the market, looking to buy some other businesses. I mean, Robb's just a serial entrepreneur, a fun guy, does his own podcast that we'll talk about during this, but it's just a great conversation to listen to a guy that's passionate about business, wealth building, relationships, and family. And I'm so excited to talk to Robb Green today. Let's get right to it. Robb, it's great to have you in the Quiet Life Podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Nice to have you. And thanks for having me, Pat. I appreciate it.
Of course, I know you have a real history here. You knew Joe Valley and you're still willing to come around us after meeting him and Walker and some of these other guys. So I'm super excited about this because when I do the podcast, I like to do a lot of fun stuff. I like to do a lot of things that are actionable. And obviously there's sales and business, but you take a really interesting approach. You have a 3-pronged approach to how you do business, and some of it has nothing to do with business. So I'm anxious to hear all about it. First of all, tell our listeners where you're from, about you, maybe a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I appreciate that. From Minnesota originally, been out in Arizona since college. Grew up in the cold. Great place to grow up, but honestly, cold's not for me, man. I like to fly to it or drive to it and then fly back home to the sunshine. So I've been out in Arizona for 20 some years out here and married, 2 kids, loving my life and really focused on the business, and it allows the freedom. I mean, I think that, entrepreneurism is the opportunity and it creates an extraordinary life. And that's how I think about it. It's not just about acquiring money and making money.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because I talked to some people before about my business. Obviously I had my Shark Tank e-com business, Happy Feet Slippers, shameless plug as usual. I usually don't talk about it very much, truly, but some people sort of go through that and talk about, how great it looks on the surface, everything. They don't realize the struggles. And sometimes those struggles jump not only from business, they jump into family because you end up, running your days long and then you're stressed and tired. You may not want to hear it. So tell us about your 3-pronged approach of how you go about your day and your life and business in general, because I was really curious to hear that approach.
Yeah, I got this from a buddy of mine a couple of years ago. And the idea is really, it's 3 pillars, right? It's the wealth, it's the health, and it's the relationships. How can you be an A in all 3 categories at the same time? You see most of the time, you see guys that have a ton of wealth and they're out of shape. They don't have relationships. They've been divorced 3 times, right? And a lot of times in the short run, you do need to make trade-offs, right? Because we all had that push entrepreneurially where you start a new business, you start a new brand, you maybe got to pick up the hours and you got to work extra hard in the beginning. But how do you get back to the point where you've got an A in all 3 categories? That's the goal that I think about all the time. I try to stay in great shape. I work out religiously, spend a ton of time with my kids. We leave. I live in Arizona, so it's super hot. So we leave within 2 days of school getting out, and we don't come back until 2 days before school goes back in. So we're gone the entire summer. Wow. And that is a phenomenon. And honestly, the business part of it allows me to do that, right? And so that is something I've designed. My wife and I have designed, more than a decade ago when we first had kids. I was like, I don't want to be in a job where I can't enjoy my time with the children and I have to not be able to travel during the summer when it's the opportune time when the kids are out of school. So I really think about those 3 categories and how I can win in each of them. And again, there might be short term, down a little bit, up a little bit here, but how do I get an A in each of those 3 categories?
It's really incredible. Some people would say, how do I get close to an A or something? It's like some people think you can't be perfect in every situation, but maybe in that situation, if you shoot for that A and you still feel like, well, I got a B plus, you still feel very solid about how you've done things. You mentioned obviously the family feel. Tell us about that. How old are your children?
Yeah, 2 daughters, 14 and 13. The 14-year-old's going to turn 15 next month. So we're talking about cars and driving next year. But really close with both girls. They play sports. I coach a little bit. My wife's heavily involved in school and committed to spending time there. Funny enough, we met with my oldest daughter, my 9th grader's counselor recently. She moved in 9th grade this year. And somehow I said, I want to be more involved in the school. And my wife did all the work. All credit to her. I am now eligible to be a substitute teacher. So I don't know how this happened, to be honest. I was my idea, in all fairness, but I want to be a substitute teacher, maybe 1 day a month, maybe 2 days a month, where I can go in and I can put faces to the names of all these kids. So
Yeah.
I'm more involved with I hear all these kids' names and there's different kids all the time. I want to put faces to names and they know who I am. They know that I'm Dylan's dad and I know who they are. So, I mean, I'm at the sporting events, but it's just different to have those interactions with kids. So I like teaching and coaching. So we're going to try it and see how it goes.
That's an amazing idea. And plus you get to embarrass your kids while you're there. You could like wear a goofy outfit or something. They'll hate that. You got
I
to
embarrass her
That'll be the
regularly
fun part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what do you by out of interest, what do you coach?
So I've coached everything for the kids. I mean, I played a lot of sports growing up. So I've coached soccer. I've coached volleyball. Right now I'm coaching my oldest daughter, and I'm not a runner. I'm just more of a soccer player, but I'm coaching her in cross country running to get her motivated. And I took her, and we did hill repeats out in the mountain on Sunday, actually.
You know, the people that are listening don't realize we take a few minutes before and kind of talk. And I told you, I thought we had a lot of synergies because I coached for 10 years in high school as a paraprofessional coach, as an assistant coach. So I know exactly what you go through in that. My son was a cross country runner. All three of my sons ran cross country, and my oldest won 3 state championships in high school. And the middle son was on one of those teams as well. So running is big in our lives as well. That's so awesome. Yeah, it's really amazing because I think you draw so much and you get so much time because let me, one other thing on this, like you talk about lifestyle, and it's interesting because you're talking more about business as a lifestyle than business as a job. It's those are two completely different mentalities because in the afternoon, if you want to go coach volleyball at 3:45, you need to be able to do that, but you're going to come back and work from 6:30 to 8. Tell us about how you made the commitment to be able to do coaching and things that are extracurricular with your kids, but still balance that time when you had to work. I mean, I know that was tough for me. Tell me how it was for you. It is right now still.
It is a challenge. And part of the reason it's a challenge is because I love what I do, right? I have a great team and I thoroughly enjoy it. I look forward to coming to the office, which when I had a job, I didn't really ever get excited about going to work. Having my own business and actually creating the right team and the right people, I get excited. When I go away for vacation, sometimes I'm excited to come back to work, which that's the hard part because I love doing it, but I also love spending time with my family. So I've got to balance a couple of things that I love. And really what I try to do is I try to design it, right? So I think of myself as an architect. How do I design my life the way that I want to design it, right? So how do I create the freedom to be able to do the things that I really want to do? I mean, you've got your kids that are a little bit older than mine. They grow up fast, and this time is going to be gone really, really quickly. So I've got a 9th grader and a 7th grader. How do I maximize that time? And really, they are at school these amount of hours. Those are my work hours. Sometimes I'll go outside of that, but the goal is to keep it limited to those hours. Yeah. And then if they're busy or something, I might do some more work or do something with my wife. But I really, really focus on trying to work when they're not available so that I can spend time with them when they are available.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think a lot about, you know, what you just said, and coaching for me for 10 years when my business was growing was really, really hard. Yeah. But I said to myself, and I said to everyone else, I'm going to be out of the house at 3:30 for a 3:45 practice. I'll be back at about 6:45 and I have to work in the evening, or I worked earlier in the morning, but I made that commitment. And what an entrepreneurship lifestyle gave me was an opportunity to spend more time with my children doing that, which was really incredible. Plus bonding with other kids. So I get that part of it. It's definitely there. So one of the things I wanted to pivot to and kind of talk about, I know you've been just an ultra successful entrepreneur building brands. And my understanding is you built 17 different brands, which is kind of crazy to think about because when people think about one and how much it stresses them, think about if you have them going on concurrently. So maybe give us a rewind and an overview of how you did that and maybe what some of them were.
I think you might have got a little bad information. I wish it was 17, Pat, but it's only been 8. So we've actually started 8 and bought 1 and sold 3 of those and currently have 5 in place right now.
Okay, well, then I gave you bigger props than you deserve, but let's go to those then. And they're going to have to check your sheet because that definitely says that.
Yeah, on there.
You've probably started, maybe not exit them all, though.
That's on my team, I'm sure. I mean,
that'll be on them. We can blame them. But I'm not going to edit it. Hold on, let's not edit it, but 17 just sounds better. Just keep going.
Well, I've always been agnostic about it. And to be honest with you, one thing I've got from a lot of my friends in this space that are really focused on one brand is that I tend to go a little too wide. And so we are actually focused on narrowing our approach now. So we want to go deep on one brand, maybe 2, but really one brand. So that's what we're looking to do right now is acquire a much bigger brand and then probably sell off the existing brands that we have now and go deep into one that I'm really passionate about. So we've been looking at what kind of brand to acquire. And we've been doing outreach, and I built a simple model to identify opportunities that are our core competencies and what we can actually do and improve the brand. So we're going to narrow our focus. I think my original desire to go wide was, we've got skills around e-commerce, Amazon, some sourcing skills. How do we actually just find opportunities and then go into those opportunities? And I think that's given me a lot of diversification, but probably not the overall reach that I could have reached if I had gone to one brand only, to be honest with you.
That makes a ton of sense. So what you've learned in your business that you've gone through now you have your eyes set on something much different that could be a little bit bigger business, maybe condense it all. So when you're looking at businesses you run, what kind of strengths do you have? What do you really focus on? Some people are really numbers driven. They have to look at the metrics. Others are field driven. Some are marketing. What are your specialties and you hang your hat on in ecom?
Yeah, I'd say it's data oriented. And then problem solving really difficult problems, right? I tend to spend some time on the Amazon algorithm, try to reverse engineer what's happening. And then it's just data analytics. Numbers have always come easy to me. So many sellers don't even know their lifetime value. They don't understand their basic dashboarding. You've probably seen this a million times talking to a lot of these guys that want to sell their business. When we do an outreach to somebody and we talk to someone, they're never accurate on how much they make. They always say they make more money. And we're like, listen, we've got scripts. We can build financials for you pretty quickly in a day. Just give us the reports. And then we have to educate them like, hey, you said you make this much. You actually don't make any money. And here's why you don't make any money. So we're really good at the financials and the data side, and then being able to solve around that and give, the customer what they want. So I don't think we're great at product. I think we're good at product. I don't think we're good at sourcing, but really it's around the data side and the math side of it, to be honest with you.
That's amazing. So which one was your favorite of all the ones that you had or owned or exited, any of them? What was the most fun business to run?
Gosh, I mean, probably the biggest exit would have been the most fun, I think. But I sold one into an aggregator a couple of years ago. But actually, if I'd say fun, I have one right now that I named after my daughters. And it's just some arts and crafts for kids and hand casting kit and things like that. So we named it after my daughters. They're in all the videos and photos, and it was a way to incorporate them into the business. So I don't really believe that you want to turn it off and on, right? Family here, business here, health here. I like to integrate everything. I think it's difficult to balance if you switch off. So I took my oldest daughter right before COVID to China with me. She was just turning 10. And I took her to China for 9 days. And we hit trade shows and visited factories. And she's been to China. They understand how the businesses work. They've been in pictures and videos, and they've done like product research for us. I'll give them a product and they'll break it down and try to understand, hey, why does this sell well? What do you think of the packaging? What do you think of the instructions? So we try to incorporate the kids as much as possible.
That's really amazing because, it's funny because when I go on the road, there's some speakers that I see out there. And one time, one of them brought his son and he was just trying to train him on public speaking. And the kid had to sit there and watch it. And you know what? After I thought about it, it was one of the greatest things they ever did. And actually, I went to a Shark Tank reunion when a group that I sort of travel with, we have a reunion in Vegas every year. And one of the guys the guy that organizes it, both of his sons, our son and daughter had to work in the show, that like giving out badges first, setting up stuff, putting up speakers and things like that. And then at one point they were on stage and they got to interview somebody. It was a start to finish understanding of how to run a trade show. And I looked at it and went, this is awesome. They accompanied their kids in it. I wish that I'd have done that more when I was younger. I was building an e-com business a little harder that way, but that's definitely awesome. So I know that leads me where I wanted to talk about. So you have your own podcast called I'm the One, and you definitely concentrate on that building wealth, relationships, and well-being. Are there any that take a priority? Are those in any order? Is the person supposed to decide? Tell us about the podcast and how you focus on that.
Yeah, so the podcast is something new. We just launched it in August. My team actually came up with the idea. They told me in May before we left for summer vacation that I was going to do a podcast and I didn't have a choice. So they came up with an idea, came up with a name, and they said, listen, we want you to be able to reach more people. We love when you teach us stuff. We're going to just do this. We're going to figure this out. And I said, great, this sounds awesome. Let's do it. So that's how the whole podcast, actually, the idea came to fruition. It's been a ton of fun for me. And it does allow me to have conversations around some of the topics that I'm passionate about. And then, I share these ideas with my friends, my family anyway. Now I could just point them to a podcast and be like, hey, you want to talk about cold plunge and health? Great. It's episode whatever it is. Go pay attention and go check it out and listen to what we've got going on. But I think that the biggest thing for me is, how do I scratch my own itch? I'm constantly trying to learn, and it forces me to learn and be prepared and then share what I learn. I've got a mastermind with some bunch of friends in e-commerce that we do this. We get together every 4 months. We share ideas. We have conversations. I love helping other people. And so for me, it's an opportunity for me to share what I'm learning and what I've learned, and hopefully help other people.
That's a great thing. I mean, I am really the same way. It's funny because I'm talking with a group here in Louisville, Kentucky, about working on some things in e-com and incubator to help entrepreneurs grow. And I think it's all about being a little more philanthropic now at my age. And now you're younger than me. And looking at that focus is something that every entrepreneur should be doing, especially if you've accomplished a lot of things, been a lot of places. Like, you need to share that knowledge with other people. And I think the way that you're talking about it is really amazing. So, I know that we talked about some questions. I know you're big into continuous self-education. I didn't even want to preface that by anything. And I was curious when I read that, because a lot of people won't admit that they want to continue to self-educate and grow as an individual. They just think, well, I'm here. So what makes you focus on that much? And what are you working on now?
So I've got a friend of mine who's a PT, and he's Japanese. And we talk about Kaizen, which is that constant, never-ending improvement, right? And I guess I don't know where I learned it, but I've always believed that I'm always trying to get better, right? And I actually opened the podcast with a quote that I love, which is, treading water is like drowning to people like you and me. And that's what I feel like when I'm sitting still and I'm not actually growing and learning. So I think about it in a couple of different ways. I do 2 groups that allow me to learn in a couple of different capacities. One, I co-founded a mastermind e-commerce space called No BS. So we've got 11 members. We get together 3 times a year for the last 6 years, and we all just share best practices. The biggest thing about that, the smartest thing we ever did, is nobody makes any money off it. So the only way you can attend is by continuing to add value. So if you don't add value, we all vote. And unfortunately, we've had to ask a couple of people to not be a part of it anymore. So I get a little bit of flack sometimes from those people when I see them. But the reality is that everybody shows up, and very successful people. And once people make a certain amount of money, it's hard to keep them engaged. So this is continuously everybody adding value to each other. It brings out the best in all of us, and we all learn and get better together. The second thing that I do is I do Strategic Coach, which is a Dan Sullivan program. It's been around 30, 40 years. I go to the group in Santa Monica, been in it 4 years now. It's all sorts of entrepreneurs, about 40 people in our group, and they talk all different concepts. How do you get more time? How do you get more freedom? How do you understand what you're doing? How do you build a self-managing company and then a self-multiplying company? So that has all those aspects to it from the business side. And we end up talking, honestly, we all talk about health. Every time I go to the meetings, we're always talking about, hey, what's going on? I've now become the cold plunge and sauna guy somehow in the group. So I got peppered with questions last month when I was there about what I'm doing to try to stay healthy and try to stay optimal. I'm trying to Benjamin Button this thing, Pat. I'm going backwards. I'm getting healthier every year, buddy.
There you go. I think that's a great approach to it. It's really amazing what you said about the mastermind, though. So as we go to a lot of sponsors at Quiet Light, we'll end up going there and doing our speech to add value and stuff. And it does. Every year, it seems like it grows. And then they talk the expenses, and some of it seems, focused on profit, which I understand they have to cover costs. And if they're making money on it, great. But your focus of add value or get out, that's a rudimentary way of saying it. But it's really kind of amazing, because you either have to put up or shut up. And a lot of people sit around and just listen at masterminds, and that's not a good process. I mean, how has that worked out for the group? Do you feel like that adds the value just because you do that one simple thing?
Absolute game changer. Because I had gone to some expensive masterminds before this, and that's exactly what you said. When someone pays a lot of money, a lot of people just show up, and they sit down and they say, listen, I spent all this money. I'm here. Give to me. Right. So to turn that around, change the paradigm, the difference is, and we all share the cost. We get a couple of houses. We've done them all over the world, but we do them in Scottsdale now, here in Scottsdale all the time. And so we get a couple of houses. We get a chef. We have a great time. We spend a few days sharing. Everybody has to present. And then the idea is that we all have to add value. And a lot of us have known each other now for 6 years, 7 years. So we understand the other person's business. So there's so much value. I'll see opportunities in like home goods. And I'll call my friend and be like, hey, have you seen this? Check out this product. It gives you a reach. I mean, this concept's not a new concept. It's from Think and Grow Rich and been going on for hundreds of years. But if you get a bunch of like-minded people that all want to grow in the same direction, and some of these guys have exited and not even in e-commerce anymore, but still in the mastermind, and now they're doing maybe real estate, and they're adding value from a real estate or an NFT perspective or a crypto perspective. So the big thing that we do is that's the core foundation. And then we typically add 3 to 4 guests every mastermind. And then they come from a brand new, they give their opinion. Occasionally we'll add somebody, or maybe it'll be the person who comes once a year as a guest, right? And that person will come once a year because they've got a certain expertise we don't have in the group, or they're just a good person to have in the group to add value and something new that's going on. So we've found it's one of the most valuable things I do from a professional and a personal perspective.
That's really amazing. I mean, that's a good way to go about it, that everyone feels it's incumbent on them to add something. And usually that's going to change a conversation versus sitting and learning. I guess the best thing would being like sitting in a lecture. That's really incredible. So I think, as we get towards the end of this, I was really drawn to what you said about family and how you balance that, because anyone that knows me knows that that's been the first focus of my mind. It's always been family first and business second. But I found a way to make sure that I can balance them all. But the only time that I ever got concerned about it was you carry all the good things, everyone celebrates. But when you have bad days and you're having bad months and bad 6 months, sometimes people end up different people with their family. They carry it with them every day if they're around with them. Being an entrepreneur is not the easiest thing. How do you suggest, or how have you balanced that in the past when you have tough times? Because that's obviously part of this work-life balance you're talking about. You've been in the doldrums of that. What's the key? How do you get past that if you're an entrepreneur? I know it depends, but
one of our core values here is radical transparency in the business, and we have the same radical transparency at home. So my wife and I don't hide anything from the kids. Like, hey, if it's a difficult time or something's going on, I share with the kids. Hey, listen, we're having challenges here. This just happened, and here's a lesson that we learned from it. I mean, I try to teach the kids, like, there's no such thing as mistakes, just learning opportunities. So that applies in business and in personal life. And I think it's easy to tell your kids something, but it's far more impactful to show them. And if they see me go through that and ride the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, which we all have, it's never a straight line. It's always a roller coaster, right? So there's always going to be ups and downs. And I just think it sets them up for life. One of the best things I ever heard was our job as a parent is not to smooth out the road. It's to enable the children to handle the bumpy road that's going to happen in the future. That's what we try to focus on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that one thing you'll find out that I know a little bit more now than you do is how to, be involved with adult kids. But the funny thing about that is I've transitioned from exactly where you were, the father, the coach, the high school thing, going in, doing all that. And the kids go out and go to college and come away. And it's harder to raise adult children, but treating them like that and the work you're doing now to make them successful all pays off in the end, because their lives are much better. And my sons are just great young men. And I think it'd be the same way with your daughter. So, Robb, is there anything that you would like to tell the audience that maybe we haven't covered today? I know we talked about a lot. I got really excited about the personal side, but anything about the business, yourself, or any other topics you think?
I mean, I think this has been a great conversation about, I'd love to talk about a little bit more about what you guys are doing and seeing in the space, to be honest with you. I mean, we're looking to acquire businesses. We'll probably sell some. I try to stay in touch. I'm on your newsletter and watch the pod and try to listen to what's going on in the space. What do you guys see right now with Quiet Light and what's happening currently in the e-com space, and how the valuations are changing, aggregators getting upended a little bit? What's your take on the whole market right now?
Yeah. Now, you that are listening, obviously this is probably in late November that I think we're airing this. Right now we're sitting in the first couple of weeks of October, but it's not that much different. As far as the climate you're talking about, M&A has been way different this year. Even though Quiet Light is still having a great year, we've been growing every single year and having good years. The feel that I have, my touch and feel with the industry says that things have been down, that entrepreneurs have been struggling, that, credit lines shrinking because of interest rates and cost of money going up is going to affect product flow in for the fourth quarter. I think only thing I'm concerned about in any market right now is that I think there's a lot of people that have a lot riding on Q4. And if it doesn't work out well, I have a weird feeling there's going to be some serious small business problems in the beginning of the year. That's what I've said all year. When I go to the Shark Tank reunion, I've been to 10 shows this year, and all of them say the same thing. It's good, but it's not great. We're down a little bit, or we're down a bunch. And how's the market? The same questions. I think everyone just has to fight through this situation right now. We got a lot going on in the world, but at Quiet Light, things are still really good. I mean, people know us. We're more niche-y. We don't take every listing. We typically work with great entrepreneurs and we bring things to market. but I hear some more optimism in the market right now. So every conversation we've had in the last 3 weeks and last part of September has said that the market's getting better. So I think there'll be a lot of good lead flow into the last part of the year. It's just going to be a question of how the economy recovers in the United States into the beginning of next year. It's like, I don't care what anyone says. We're in recessionary times. Call it what you want. I don't care. And I think with interest rates so high, it's hard to get lending to buy companies. You need things that can have cash. So cash buyers have been in a better position. But I think things will change a little bit as interest rates hopefully drop starting early part of next year. And then we'll see. I mean, what are you seeing out there, you think?
You hit the nail on the head. Almost everybody we've talked to is banking on a big Q4. Whether it's a couple new products or selling through inventory. I've heard this a lot in the last 2 months about, oh, we got this going to happen in Q4. And I said, okay, well, if that doesn't happen, then I'd love to talk to you the first week in January after Q4, and let's see what happens. So that's one thing. But just on a separate note, and you can cut this out if you want, but did you go to the Shark Tank event in July this year in Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost went to that.
Yeah, you should.
I advised for a company up in Seattle, and we had purchased a brand that was attending the event. And we were in Hawaii for the summer, so it wasn't worth the flight back to Vegas, but I heard it was a great event.
Oh, it was an exceptional event. We actually had one of the greatest dinners I've ever been to at a place called Beauty and Essex in the Cosmopolitan. But that's coming up again this year. And listeners out there that are still hanging on with this, we're talking more, structure this. There's a lot of different shows you can get into. I believe this Shark Tank, if you're out there and you're a Shark Tank company, you've been on the show, look up Shark Tank Pals on Facebook. You can join that and then be able to come to the reunion if you're one of the companies that has aired. That's sort of the cutting line. They make sure that you have aired on it, but there are extensions. But I think next year it's going to be in Nashville, and it'll probably be, I think they said maybe Nashville in like July. People are worn out with Vegas. I feel like I've been 100 times this year. It's literally crazy how many shows are in Vegas. But in any event, yeah, I think that's a great look at it. I think people that are out there looking to buy businesses, be patient. It's kind of like the housing market. I think the housing market needs 18 months if someone's really wanting to try to get in there because interest rates need to go down. I think businesses is more like 6 months. I think when you get into March and April, I think people will start looking at good, solid businesses. And if you're looking to buy one, get out there. And if you're a seller, come to a broker like me or anyone and get good advice. At least see where you're at, and then find out if you have an opportunity to sell your business or keep running it.
I mean, as a seller and a buyer, I cannot agree with you any more than that, to be honest with you. Get advice. I mean, most people have never sell more than one business, right? And so they've got no experience. And I've helped a bunch of friends sell their businesses, and they have no idea. And there's those little things, you know this already, Pat, so I'm preaching to the choir here. Those little things make a big difference at the end of the day, whether that's negotiating terms, whether it's pricing, whatever it might be. There's a lot of little things. If you've never done it, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what at Quiet Light, we say that all the time. You don't know what you don't know when you're buying a business. So that works on both sides. But man, Robb, this has been amazing. We could sit here and talk for hours. I love your focus on entrepreneurship, wealth building, relationships. It's awesome. So guys, if you, and the podcast is I am the one podcast. But if people need to reach out to you, tell them how they can reach you, Robb.
Yeah, I think I'm the one.com is the best way to do it. There's a Q&A on there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Either of those work also. It's Robb Green with 2 B's, R-O-B-B, and then Green last name, just like the color.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw in there you can just submit a question. People have fun with that if they go on there.
Yep, absolutely.
But man, it's been great, Robb. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you being on the Quiet Light podcast. It was absolutely awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Pat. I appreciate it.